God decided to relate to us. I say this knowing that there are only 5 of us in the church this morning. Only 5 of our community will be able to relate to God in this particular way today. And there is a pain to that because of how crucial and central this act of feeding on our God is. But I don't want any of us to misunderstand how our God relates to us. He did not come to us, serve us, die for us, and offer his body and blood to us as food and say, that's the only place I'm going to feed you. Think about it. We talk about taking communion. We take it. What does that mean? That we put a spoon in our mouth and we take the elements off the spoon? Is that what it means to take communion? For most of us, that's all that we have thought about. But our God is the God who wants to be in communion, not just to have that union once every week or so, or more often in other times. Communion is something that can't be broken. Communion is something that goes on. It lives on. It is even eternal. That's the sense that I want all of you that are watching, listening this morning to think about what it means to take communion. You're not going to come and receive Holy Communion in that way. But if we hear then somehow a sense that that means we don't take communion today, then we're missing out what our God came to do and who he expressed himself to be. In that first reading, the very first words of the reading was God telling Moses, go down to the people and solemnly charge them and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, let them be ready for the 3rd day. In the reading, we know that that is fulfilled when on the 3rd day God comes down and meets the people at the base of the mountain. So holy is God that he told Moses, if anybody were to touch the mountain, they were to be killed, because God is that holy. But he told them to consecrate themselves for those first 2 days and be ready for the 3rd day, because on the 3rd day, they met him. And as we all do, we meet God on his terms, not ours. When we hear those words, let them be ready for the 3rd day, we can also, because we know how we understand and remember the 3rd day. The 3rd day is the 3rd day that our Lord rested in the tomb before he rose again. That's what it means to meet the Lord on the 3rd day, to meet him in his resurrection, as God willing we're going to do as we continue celebrating this Holy Week leading us to Pascha. But there is that another way that I mentioned. We've talked in Bible study that 3 is always the number of completeness, not just because it's the number of the persons of the Trinity. We've talked about how you start a race, you say, on your mark, get set, go, 1, 2, 3. There's a completeness in 3. And for every one of you that cannot receive Holy Communion in this way, then if you don't take communion today in every other way that's available to us, then what a shame. And what a shame and what a waste that all of us go through this life with a God who expressed himself on the terms he wanted to, by becoming one of us, by serving us, and by dying for us, and then by giving us his broken body and his spilled blood as our life-sustaining food. Then we can, if we are not careful, miss out on taking communion, on being in communion with God in every other way that he gives us every day. He allows us to come to him in prayer. He allows us to hear his voice most clearly in silence. And he gives to each one of us, everyone else around us, not just as an image of themselves, but as an image of him. So today, whether you can come into the church or not, let's rejoice in Holy Communion as God has given it to us. Let's see his face where he shows his face to us. Yes, in the holy icons that hopefully adorn not only our churches but our homes. but in the faces of all those around us. And let us relate to God on his terms, and then to do what he told us to do, go and do likewise. He told the disciples, I have washed your feet, now go wash one another's feet. Another incredible, special way for us to take communion. Let's take communion. Let's take it every day in every way that God gives us to have it. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.